Hey book reader friends, this is Christy with Tanahako Reads. I have a video for you today that I thought would be kind of fun and fascinating to do. We're going to be using my Goodreads folder. It's 2026 reads. So we're going to talk about the books from January to July that I have read. We're down to the last week of July. I thought this would be fun. It's a little bit late for the half a year tag, but you know, we're going to come in better late than never. So let's talk about the books that were total hits and books that were total bombs. And again, I'm just using my Goodreads folder and we're going to talk about these. I had it written out too on my scribe. However, I didn't write them in order to go along my Goodreads for some weird reason. It's very odd for me not to make those things match, and it's messing with my brain. So we are going to be a little slower by using the Goodreads app in general. I'm not a huge fan, so I'm thinking about next year doing something else, but we'll talk about that on a journaling day. Today is not that day. The first book of this video would be Gallows Hill. 5-star rating for me. I finished this book in March of this year. Goodreads is also not putting, even though I have it filtered to put as I've added the books to the list, they're putting them out of order. So for that, I apologize as well. Because I've changed how I'm going to do this video and how I'm going to follow my notes, it's also going to change the order of the books that we're going to talk about. On Goodreads, it is a 3.90 with 16,000 ratings. Okay, that's pretty impressive. A lot of people have read this book. It's by Darcy Coates. I wanted to read one of her books because her books always look very spooky on the front. And we're mainly, instead of going in and reviewing each of these books, we're going to just kind of tell you how I felt. And I thought that would be a fun concept as well. This book was spooky. This book played in my mind even when I put the book down. It was an edge of your seat story, and it is murder, it is suspense, there are twists that you cannot help but to want the answers to your questions. Fantastic read. I highly recommend it, especially for the month of October, which is coming up very fast. I mean, technically you could probably read it in September, October, you know, sometime towards the fall start. The next book, oh my God, I am so in love with the Jade City Greenbone saga. I read book 1 this year and I gave it a 5-star. I finished the book in May of this year to the point where I loved it so much I couldn't wait to get into book 2, Jade War, which I just finished here in July. But we'll get into that rating in a minute. For Jade City, the book had me feeling like it was a nostalgic moment of rewatching Goodfellas, with not copying the movie, but it still gave you that vibe that Goodfellas gave you, and it had me with the crime bosses, the crime families, the clan families, the murders that happened, the political intrigue. There was just so much going on, and the magic system being Jade. It is just a freaking good book. It's got a 4.05 on Goodreads with 124,000 ratings, and I gave it a 5-star. The series will be a 5-star for me. I can already tell you that. Going into the next book I read, Dark Matter. That's by Blake Crouch. I gave it a 4.25. I don't know that that rating is honest. Maybe I was just happy to be done with the book. I had a hard time with this one. It was a fantastic concept, but it left me feeling like, come on, this was too long. And we had some repetitive scenes. I don't mind some repetitiveness, but I do mind when you have a scene and you kind of duplicate it somewhere else in the story with just a little slight change. It's not my thing. So this really deserved probably a 4-star for me. The pacing was very slow. However, the violence was off the charts, insane. Had a good time with that part. The concept was neat. It just went on too long. I would also recommend this one through October, September, somewhere in that time frame. Again, kind of fall. 9 Goblins, the next book I read this year. This one is a T. Kingfisher book. I happen to enjoy T. Kingfisher. I won't say she's not my favorite author. However, I do love their writing fantastically. This book became a 5-star for me. I finished it in January. It has a 4.14 rating and 13,000 ratings on Goodreads. It was a cute story. You couldn't help but to giggle throughout the entire thing, so it left me giggling consistently. And if you can make me laugh consistently, you're good. If you have me laughing maybe a little bit here and then a couple chapters down the line, I'm kind of over it. It's like, all right, cool. There was a lot of gap between laughs, but whatever. But a funny book that can make me laugh consistently is rare. This book had me laughing and just feeling good when it was done. So So I do recommend it. Fantastic any time of the year. I feel like it was such a cozy read, maybe towards fall. The next book, this one's kind of unfair. I think I can't remember if these are in order or not, or if I read another Robin Hobb this year or not, but The Assassin's Quest is book 3 of the Farseer trilogy. I love this series. Farseer trilogy has left me to where I'm going to read the rest of the Elderlings. I am so in love with her writing. It is cozy. This was 748 pages for book 3. It was the bigger one out of the trilogy. It was paced slow, which is why it did not get a 5-star. This was a 4-star for me, and I felt like there was roughly 30 or 40% that I didn't care about. And then the ending wasn't the way I wanted it. Without giving spoilers, it didn't happen the way I wanted the Farseer trilogy to end. However, it was still a good ending that you could appreciate. And that was something magical, because a lot of authors will give you what you want. It's nice to have an author that says, no, I'm going to write it this way, and tell you what you needed to hear. And that was kind of like, whoa, jarring. I wasn't expecting it to have the ending that it had. And of course, it ruffled my feathers. However, it is a fantastic series, and I do highly recommend it. Listening to it is very cozy. I'm not sure how reading the books would be, even though I own them. I have only listened to them, and I will probably continue that method all about. The next series, this one has me, I don't really get into a series where I read a couple of the books in the same year, even though I typically buy the entire series at one go. I'll read a book and then maybe next year read book 2. However, there are 2 series in this, one being the Greenbone Saga and the next one being the Sun Eater. The first book is Empire of Silence. Christopher Racchio, absolutely breathtaking writing. He has a way of leading you to know probably what's getting ready to happen. You may not know how it's going to happen, but he leaves you in a way that you feel satisfied. That is something I am all for. There's a lot of action in this book. It is paced between other pieces, so it's not constant action-packed, kind of like Jade War was total action-packed the entire time. There is more going on in world building and character building with this series. And you have to kind of understand that going into it, that it does take time to really lay these out. So it's not going to be consistent fighting or consistent scenarios or continuous drama, but there is fantastic character building that I truly do love. Then from that one, we went to The Devils. I have a lot to say about The Devils. It's by Joe Abercrombie. The first thing is that I rated it a 4-star, and there's a reason why. It's because at 11%, I put the book down for many months, and I could not pick it back up. Every time I would try, I would get back to that 11% again and quit. So there was something in that first 11% that was just slow drag, but it was also repetitiveness. And in the first part of a book that's repetitive with the same kind of jokes over and over and over, they're just not funny anymore. And it can't hold your attention, but for so long. The story didn't stop the repetitiveness. However, once I came back to it and set my mind to finishing this book, I did it. And I am so glad I did, because it was so worth it. With a 4-star rating, it was more of a 4.5. It got knocked because of the slow pacing and the absolute repetitiveness of jokes. And even some of the scenes were duplicated and then just shifted a little bit. And that annoys me, as we've already said today. And it left me feeling, though, like I have more questions, but it left you ready for the next adventure. So when Joe Abercrombie finished writing this book, he set up the next book and set you up to look forward to it. I cannot wait. I am so excited for that series. That book 2 to come out. This series is going to be good. I am curious, is he going to stop the repetitiveness in book 2? I sure hope so. I finished this one in June of this year. Robin Hobb actually is someone who has reviewed this one, but it's a 4.2 on Goodreads with 78,000 ratings, 12,000 reviews. That is amazing for a book to get that much energy. And there's a lot of banter, and I personally need a lot of banter. I think this book nailed the banter. It was hilarious the way it was handled, but you also need to be ready for that potential slow burn that you may see in there, like I did and many other people have as well. But the story is so worth it. And now to the next book. All right, this is actually a series. I'm not going to stay in this series too long because honestly, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's a book series that I picked up on, I think I started in Audible and then caught that it was Kindle Unlimited as well. And so I started doing immersion reading with it. It is books that you can finish fast. They're only 60 to 90 pages approximately. They're by authors you know, but with short stories. Let me say, with that said, I am not a short story person. If I am left where I don't care off of your short story, I don't care if you ever wrote this into a full book, then I didn't like your short story either. There's some short stories in this series that I'm like, man, I could have used a little bit of hashing out on this. I could have used a longer book. Those got 4 and 5 stars. Very few of these books for me out of the 6 have beyond a 3-star. With that said, out of the 6, there are 2 that I have not read. I will come back to this series maybe later. I had to take a break. So again, I said it was authors that you recognize. So the first book by the Time Traveler's Passport is called 3 Days, 9 Months, 27 Years. This is book number 1, written by John Scalzi. This one got a 3-star. This is my first experience with John Scalzi. This will make it hard for me to want to pick up another book of his. I have to remind myself this was a short story. These are not my cup of tea, and that his books are probably better than this little snippet. So I should pick up one of his books. If you think I should, and you have some of your favorites by John Scalzi, put it in the comments of where I should start so that I can kind of get this little bit of bitterness out of my mouth. His rating on this book is 3.89 on Goodreads, and it's 16,000, almost 17,000 ratings and 1,500 reviews. Pretty good, honestly, for as short as these stories are, that he's got that high of a rating on it. Could be that, he has a support of a huge fan base. But I feel like this was not a good representation of his writing, at least I hope not. These are not going to be in order. I'm going to pull them as they are showing up in Goodreads. Thank you, Goodreads, for putting them out of order. The next one that I'm going to talk about is Coronis. Coronis is the only 5-star in this 6-book series that I rated this high. This was fascinating. This was dealing with what if AI landed in the right hands or the wrong hands, and what would we do with it, and what happens if it gets used against you to take away your memories, to alter your history. The particular history they choose to play with makes this story very alarming. I'm going to keep it short on the review because I don't want to spoil it. Coronis, and it's spelled, if you go to look it up, it's Cronus, and I will link it below for you as well. It's P. Dijeli. I know I'm botching that first name, Clark, Clark. I read it in January. This one is like, okay, these books, okay, redemption, but unfortunately it was the only 5 stars that I've read so far out of it. The next book out of this same ridiculous group is For a Limited Time Only. I actually can't even fully remember this one, so my review says sad but a good listen. Easy to follow, genre sci-fi. I'm not going to go into it because I don't remember it. I don't think it's fair to try to describe something to you that I can't even remember. It's a 3.93 rating on Goodreads. I gave it a 3, so I rated it below what Goodreads did. 5,300 ratings, 623 reviews. It's a time traveler salesman searches for the moments that truly matter in his poignant short story from national best-selling author Ping Shepherd. You might enjoy it. Again, these are short stories. You can have it finished and something marked on your Goodreads or check your box for, another book read. They're all interesting and they will make you think and feel something, either annoyed or like, whoa, that was a brilliant idea. Flush that out, write it more. This one wasn't one of those for me. The next one that I read is A Visit to the Husband Archive. Again, this is the Time Traveler's Passport. This is book number 4 out of those. You do not need to read them in order. I'm just giving you the book number as they have ordered it. They don't need to be, they're not related at all. So don't hesitate to read them backwards, read them however you choose. This was a 1-star. I do remember this one. So there's something there, being said for that one. Kayline Bradley. It's a 3.17 on Goodreads. I gave it a 1 star and 4,600 ratings out of 530 reviews. It's a dystopian. It's a short story. And think of it like this. If you could pick a different husband every day out of your closet like you would your clothes. That's all I'm going to say about it, because I don't really want to go into it with a biased review in this case. It might be fascinating to someone else, so I wanted to bring it up. And I think that concludes those 4 out of those 6 books that are there. So we're going to go ahead and dive into the next book, the Book of Falling Leaves. Now it's going to get better. The Autumn Empire. This is book number 1. Book number 2, I think, comes out next year. I cannot wait. This got a 4.5 for me, so I need to fix my Goodreads. I had it as a 4. It's a 5 star. So 4.5. There's loyalty, responsibility, family responsibility to your blood family, but also your adoptive family, betrayal. Can you trust the gods? A lot of mythology again in here. Asian themed, fantastic writing, especially for a debut author. Energetic characters you care about, some that you don't. And I do highly recommend this story without fail. I will be reading book 2 as soon as it releases. This is by A.S. Tamaki. So let's go to the next, because I opened that one. Now I've got to scroll through and find where I'm at. It's Not Her by Mary Kubica. I hope I pronounced that one correct. On Goodreads, it's a 3.94 out of 165,000 ratings. That's insane, especially for a suspense book. It was good. It was not great. I gave it a 4-star rating. A screen, as it starts with the reviewer, the summary, a screen breaks the silence. Some family friends, and a family member was murdered. They have to figure out who did it. You're kind of pulled along. You may figure it out before the story ends. However, it's still not what you think. It has a couple twists in the book, and that made it good for me. That made it a 4-star. The writing was too slow. It could have been easily a 3.5 star for me, but because the concept was good and the twists were often, that was enough to keep me happy. The next book, The Red Winter. This one is by Cameron Sullivan. It's a 3.95 rating on Goodreads with 9,300 ratings. I gave this one I gave this a 5-star rating. It was good. It was fast-paced. There was something constantly going on. I feel like the story did go on longer than it needed to be. For 529 pages, I felt like I was in the book too long. I think this book took almost the entire month of May for me. Let me see. Not the entire month. It took me from April 27th to May 10th to finish it. It really just felt like it took me too long. It could have probably gotten a 4.5 rating. However, there were some neat ideas and concepts that kept me going. The way it ended was truly fascinating, and that hooked me. So I gave it the 5-star. It could have probably been a 4.5 easily. I felt like I needed to analyze this book when I closed it. And when a book can do that and stay in my mind and make me think about it a little longer once that cover is closed, it's done something in me, and I will rate you higher for that, because I love a book that can now go with me through the next day, even though I'm not reading it anymore. That's kind of a good story. The next book is a true story, and I don't like rating the story. I only rate the writing of the story. This book is The Man No One Believed, The Untold Story of the Georgia Church Murders. Whew, this book was jarring. It was shocking. The story was sad. It's a great reflection of how our eyewitness reviews can shift over time. It is sad to know that people assume a certain scenario, therefore don't put the work in. And then there's some people that can't stop working on finding and solving the murder or what happened. And in this case, that story is truly tragic. And you had both of those sides where some people just assumed this happened because of the race. And then you had a another person that just couldn't give this story up and they had to find the truth, and they did. However, the writing was not done well enough for me to rate it well. And again, I'm rating the writing, so it's a 3-star. It's by Joshua Sharp. It was a good story. It just could have been written better, in my opinion. 3.48 on Goodreads with 6,200 ratings, 780 reviews. I recommend the story still. I would suggest maybe Googling the story. I hate to say that. I have a feeling you might go down your own rabbit hole and have a good time with that side of it. The book is worth it if you want to get some answers and find out what happened. So it's worth that for sure. Next book on the list is Daughter of Crows, my first book by Mark Lawrence. It is the Academy of Kindness, book 1. I cannot wait for book 2. I think it's next year. I absolutely loved it. I rated it a 5-star. Goodreads has it a 3.98 with 4,300 ratings and 1,000 reviews. It makes me sad when I see it at 4,300 ratings because either A, people just aren't rating it, or B, there aren't enough people reading. This book was so good. There's mythology there that I still don't understand that I want to look into, and that's how much of an impact this book has made on me that I'm like, wait, let me flag this. I forgot. I wanted to go back and look into this avenue or this thing. There was so much family trauma in this book. It was traumatizing to the reader. There was so much going on. There's violence, there's intrigue. It is dealing with a school. However, you didn't feel like you were stuck there, but just dealing with different times in this one person's life. And it was truly fantastic. And it made me feel so good to see an older woman as a main character. Granted, we got to see different phases of her life through the book, so you weren't always with the older version of herself. However, the version Mark Lawrence chose to write the point of view from was a badass older woman. And I felt good about that. That was beautiful. However, the book is not beautiful. It is grim dark. It is the darkest of dark. It is unbelievable. Twists left and right. He mapped this. There's no way he didn't map it. And to this day, I would love to sit down and say, hey, how did you come up with this? And how did you connect and recall things later in the book that you had mentioned many chapters prior? How did you stay on it that amazingly with it being your first book in this series? It's not his first book by any stretch. My first book I've read of his, and if he writes like this, maybe not grim dark for his other ones, but still where he can connect dots and connect lines and recall pieces, I'm here for it. Fonda Lee is fantastic at that, as I now know through Jade City. The next book, it's another book that is a true story, therefore I can only rate the writing, not the story. I should have looked up her name in voice, so I feel bad that I did not do that, but I think it's Sadako, and the 1,000 Paper Cranes. This book was beautifully written. It is a treasure. It is a sad story. However, I rated it 5-star. Yes, it was slow pacing, but the book is so small. It would be even smaller if you had done it fast paced. So the book needed this time. The story is powerful. It's heartfelt. It's through a journal that she has left behind. She has since passed. It will make you feel. And that is what I rate my books on a lot of times, is how I feel when I close that back cover. How do I feel? And this book will sit with me the rest of my life. It was actually a story told to me briefly by my therapist, actually. And when she mentions something, she's so intellectually smart, and I just love some of the things that she brings to my attention that I didn't know about. And this was one of those things. I've heard of paper cranes, but I knew nothing behind it. You may actually know the history. Either way, I do recommend the book. Spiderlight by Adrian Tchaikovsky is the next book we're going to talk about. This one is a totally different pace than anything. I almost DNF'd this book in the first few percent. That's why it got a 4-star rating from me. I am glad I didn't put it down. I love his writing, especially on the short stories. And when I say short stories, I don't mean like 100 pages. I mean, it's a couple hundred pages in this book. Let me see exactly. 298 pages. It came out in 2016, but I just discovered it recently, and it was good. It again was in my mind because of the things that they do to the spider. it's a spider as the main character. So you do with that with what you will. It was a good story. It was characters that you cared about. It was characters that you couldn't help but to want to follow and join their journey. Fantastically written. I cannot wait to read another book of his. The next book, The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon, Volume 1. This book was recommended highly on, and I'm going to probably say their channel incorrectly, and I feel bad if I do, but it's Mads and Kristen's channel on BookTube, and they are fantastic, and a lot of recommendations because one of the sisters I truly do align with the reading, and so when she recommends something, I typically buy it. This one, both sisters loved it, and I've only read the journal 1 or the book entry 1. It was so fun. And as I was explaining it to my husband this morning when I was actually talking about this book, it kind of gives you of a Enola Holmes. I was going to say a softer Sherlock Holmes when I first read it. And I'm like, wait, there's Enola Holmes. So why wouldn't I say it kind of gives you that feel a little bit? And it does, actually. It's her journals and it's being told to us in the way that she wrote it. It was fun. It was something you kind of thought about, but you didn't have a lot invested in. It was a cozy read, I guess you could say. Definitely low stakes, but you wanted to know what was going on. My rating was a 4-star. It's a 4.01 on Goodreads with 106,000 ratings, 17,000 reviews. Pretty impressive for just a little tiny thin book. It's impressive. The next book, I just finished this book last night. So this book is fresh in my mind. It is Jade War. I love the Greenbone Saga so much. This is book 2. I cannot wait to get on Jade Legacy. However, I am going to make myself wait because I've got so many books on my shelves that are technically my TBR. Told my husband I would like to go through and just pull off what I've read off my shelves just so I could finally see how much I need to sit in my library and do nothing but read. Never go anywhere, never spend another dime, just sit here and read. It would still take me several years. It's really embarrassing. But the Jade War book, let's talk about that one specifically, not just the series, even though the series is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 star rating for me. The Greenbone Saga, book 2, Jade War, definitely a 5-star. It has a 4.37 on Goodreads, 63,000 ratings, and 9,500 reviews. Insane. This book had people feeling something all the way to the last percent. And I think this book on Kindle made it to 98%. And then it gets into the author's notes and stuff like that and about the author. And there's even a section in the back of the book that was about the locations. So the book story itself is like to 98%. But from roughly 90% right on to the end, there was something going on. It started heating up from chapter 1. However, she hit full throttle at 70% and did not let up until the book was over. The story was done. I don't sit and just read a book and like, I have to consume this right now. I can't put it down. I'm not going to take a break. Jade War had me that way yesterday. I just sat on the couch all day. I wasn't feeling really good, so it made it easier. But normally when I don't feel good, all I want to do is sleep. Well, our internet was down and I could have even more so slept. But no, I read this book through until I was done, and I was only at 73%, and I finished it up yesterday. The book's 608 pages. So for me, 30% in a day is actually really good. I am in love with the crime boss story, the clan families, the territory wars, the political intrigue. It is everything that reminds me of Goodfellas and then some. She took it and turned it upside down. It's so nostalgic, but better because it's also a new story. I have definitely learned that I love urban fantasy now. I thought with Red Rising that I was totally understanding that I love sci-fi, but the Greenbone Saga put me into urban fantasy big time. There's a couple other books that I've read as urban fantasy, like Crescent City, that I didn't realize were urban fantasy until later. But Jade War, I feel like, threw me solidly in that genre, and it will stay as a prevalent genre I read. Fantastic writing, fast-paced. She didn't leave you bored. The political side can be hard if you don't like political conversation, because there are moments where that has to be long so that you can understand the build-up. She does not leave a character behind. There is never a character she doesn't retouch on. She brings it back up and you're like, I totally forgot that happened. That was so many pages ago, so many chapters ago. And then she brings it up in a way that you're just like, oh my God, another bomb. It is absolutely fantastic writing, and I am in love with Fonda Lee. But that is all the books I have for you today. I hope you like this video. We will be getting back to these on a weekly basis, so stick around for those. I love being here and talking about these books that I've read this year. What is your #1 book you have read so far this year? And was it any one off this list? Because I truly want to know. I want to know what other people are reading, and also what you felt about the books that I've read, that I've rated, that maybe you felt I rated unfairly. Put those in the comments below. But remember, let's keep it spoiler free. And until next time, have great reading. Bye.